The title of this video is Your Soul's Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment and Ascension. Much of the spiritual teachings you find in books, workshops, and through teachers focus on transcending the human condition. And what I mean by this is the emphasis is on sitting still, quieting your mind, and in many cases, maybe following your breath or reciting a mantra. So these practices can lead you to a very peaceful state. But there is another approach to spirituality that I found that's even more helpful and quicker for breaking through blocks, feeling stuck, confused, or wondering what enlightenment is and how to attain it. I'm speaking of a method that is more proactive. And what I mean by this is connecting with your soul and utilizing its profound resources. My approach has always been, what are the practical benefits to my spiritual practices? I was looking for something more than just de-stressing or feeling relaxed. And this search has led me to discoveries about the soul. When I began searching for information on the soul, I found mostly questions, speculations, and intellectual and philosophical discussions. I found that while many people mention the soul, and most religions talk about a soul, about you having a soul, or a need to save your soul, but if you were to try to pin them down on specific information about the soul, what is it? Where is it? Where did it come from? What is it made out of? What does it look like? How big is it? How do you connect with it? How do you benefit from having a direct, tangible relationship with it? Well, you'd probably look long and hard and surprisingly find very little. And while I consider all of these questions about the soul to be somewhat important, I don't find many people who think about their soul very much. In fact, it seems to be something rather distant and unimportant. And the most many people think about it is maybe from watching a movie about what can happen if you sell your soul to the devil. But that's a myth that only reflects how little the soul is understood. So have you ever wondered about your soul? Where is it? What is it doing? What does your soul do all day long? And if it's yours, why can't you seem to find it? Perhaps there's a big part of the problem is that the soul is not physical, of course, and therefore it cannot be measured with physical instruments or senses. And that means it's mostly relegated into the area of religion, which basically puts us at the mercy of what religious teachers tell us. But then again, they usually don't tell you very much about it because most of them don't know very much about it because they don't have a direct experience with it. And most of what they have to say, they've derived from some ancient books and trying to interpret what the ancient books say about the soul. And they don't help a whole lot either. There was a point a number of years ago when I had to admit to myself that I didn't really know what the soul is. And when I admitted that, I found it somewhat stunning to me. So think about it. Many people believe they have a soul, and it is talked about in the context as if everyone's in agreement that we know what the soul is. But if you ask people to tell them something about their soul, you'll probably get a blank stare. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to a homeless person as that poor soul. And then there's an entire genre of music called soul music. So we talk around the subject of the soul without actually delving into what the soul really is, or what it does, or what it can do. What I know about the soul comes from spending years in meditation, specifically deepening into the discovery of finding out what is the soul. So I've done a lot of meditations on the subject. I've also done more than 50,000 individual private sessions, attuning to other people, usually helping them to connect with their soul, most of which I've done over the phone. Because most people have no idea about the soul or how to connect with it. So what I have to tell you has come from refining an ability to connect with the finer dimensions where the soul is and directly communicating with the soul. Now, some people call the soul the true self. Some people think of it as the higher self. And I think as I continue, you're going to find the information be pretty fascinating and very helpful in understanding yourself and where you are on your own spiritual journey. In meditation, you can go back in time, back to your creation. And the experience can be quite profound because it can help you discover your true core essence, which is basically your soul. And I found there are some common traits associated with this experience. Some of the qualities nearly all souls have are incredible levels of purity with an openness, a gentleness, a softness, a genuineness, integrity, a goodness, and what you might even compare to an angelic-like presence of sweetness, kindness, and beauty. And I've also found that everybody's soul glows with a brilliant white light, which is also a healing light. I call it a miraculous light because it is intelligent and it knows a lot and it understands so much and it has an ability to help fix things. So when the soul emerges from the many layers under which it's buried, which you think of as your personality or identities, or what are sometimes referred to as personas or masks, which are really all distorted beliefs. It reveals deep spiritual, sacred, all-engulfing beauty, knowledge, understanding, realizations, and it all sustains a sense of well-being and happiness. Now, in the process of going back to a soul's creation, I found that there is a point when what we call the ego personality did not exist. And then there was a point when it did. It came about as an outgrowth of perceptions, conclusions, and beliefs that were all derived from feeling and realizing it was separate from everything else, including God. Now, the truth is, it was not separate, but it concluded that it was separate because it was existing in some dimensions where it was not easy to connect with the underlying truth. And I found there's something like a threshold or a veil of separation between what the soul experiences and what your personality experiences. And I sometimes refer to this as the realm of the soul, as a universe of light, and the realm of the personality and the senses as the universe of darkness, because it is separate from the light, certainly from the light of the soul. So on one side, you're in a dark universe of separation, and on the other side, you're in the oneness and the light, which is the free ego state. And when you connect with the soul, you discover that everyone's soul has purity and innocence and beauty in this pre-ego state. So anything other than that came about when the ego formed its conclusions. Each of the souls that everybody has similarities in appearance and in qualities. Just like we're all human beings in human bodies, so we have similarities, but there are also a lot of things about each of us that are quite unique and different from everybody else. The same is true of the souls. Each soul is unique. The soul has an ever-expanding capacity to open to embrace, to evolve into something more than what it currently is. And I think a reasonable question to consider is, what does this imply? What can it evolve into? All souls naturally tend to move toward more love, more caring, more fun, more compassion, more desire, and a capacity to give and share everything it is. The soul's evolution is a very slow process, and that evolutionary process can span eons of time, or what we think of as time. And this is what I've called vertical enlightenment, or vertical evolution of the soul. And this is explained in theosophy as a progression from very simple and primitive forms to more highly complex forms over very long periods of time and many and varied incarnations. Chapter 28 of my Handbook of Enlightenment goes into how vertical evolution and enlightenment differs from horizontal evolution and enlightenment, because the soul, your soul, has something like curiosity, or a desire to expand and explore and share. At whatever stage of evolution a soul is, it already has all of the wonderful qualities that I've listed and more. For instance, in addition to what I've just said, I also find that all souls have many other qualities, such as joyfulness, a type of happiness, an uplifting quality, non-judgmental acceptance, a quietness, peacefulness, innocence, satisfaction, and oneness, and a unity with all. The soul is also creative. It's generous. It's optimistic. It is eternal. It is free, which is sometimes referred to as liberation. The soul is timeless, playful, thoughtful of the needs of others. And maybe the most important quality of all is non-attached and yet deeply, unconditionally loving and caring. And it's always totally in integrity. The soul lives in unity consciousness and experiences how we're all connected in a vast universe of projections, not just as a theory, but as a continuous reality. So the soul experiences individuality, but not separation. And when you come to that realization, you are in the early stages of what is called enlightenment. So when I discovered all of this about the soul, you can see why I thought that merging with the soul, understanding the soul, realizing the soul, becoming the soul, might be a pretty good idea. So I created a book titled The Soul Solution and an audio program called Soul Merge to help others with this process. Well, by accessing your soul, you have a resource that can help you clear all your issues and blocks and move you to a level of life that very few have known, that is characterized by all of the qualities of the soul. And the most notable quality that most people experience as I help them bring the soul in is peace. And they also feel a lightness of being. They feel a happiness, and they start opening to deeper levels of unconditional love. Most of the time, most people are focused on their current emotional state, and they're trying to get to another emotional state. But the soul already has the state that you want. That state is love and peace and happiness. So by merging with the soul, you will bring everything important into your everyday experience. In a way, everyone is already hooked up to their soul, whether you're aware of it or not. In fact, you can't really be disconnected from it. But you'll notice it whenever you're attracted to something that is beautiful and creative, loving, peaceful, fun, fulfilling. And you might find it through other people or through activities or nature. You also see the soul reflected in the relentless pursuit of perfection that you find exhibited by scientists and musicians, artists, surfers, athletes, and the authors of the world's great literature and poetry, and all the others who seek to attain a higher potential. So the soul is everywhere in human life. It's not just always recognized and few seem to know how to connect with it or what to do with it. And I want you to know it's not difficult. It's not complicated. You just haven't been taught how. Everything in the universe is in a state of motion. Everything is evolving into some other state than where it is at the present moment. So whether you look at a microcosm or the macrocosm, you got to where you are now through a process, and you will continue unfolding, expanding, discovering, evolving through continuous levels of experience. And as you merge more deeply with the soul, more of the soul's qualities, like I've already mentioned, will naturally emerge in your life. The challenges come from the choices you make. Simply put, there are choices. Do you merge more deeply into the soul and fill each circumstance with the love that is there? Or do you give further life to some ego reaction of separation and pain and struggling and suffering? You'll find that as you discover more of the soul, there is an emerging empowerment that carries a dignity, integrity, virtuousness. And these are what we admire in saints. And they're people just like you and I, but they discovered their soul. And they made living from their soul a priority in their life. If you make decisions to cultivate and integrate the deepening soul realization, then you evolve your relationship with your emotions and your philosophical views of life, as well as your psychological dispositions and your spiritual state. So you see, the implications of merging with your soul are quite comprehensive. Discovering the depths of the soul is a recognition that you are in a process of evolving. And part of that evolution is the awareness that you are connected with and an aspect of a divine intelligence that gave birth to you because it wanted to experience you. So you're here on Earth now, experiencing your soul to a greater or lesser degree. The soul is always behind your evolution. It's always the driving force in your life, and it has been nudging you in a direction of greater evolvement. And you can make certain choices that help you experience the soul more and more. And the more you merge and integrate with the soul, the more you evolve. If the soul is your true nature, if it's what you are inside at your core, then what are we to think about all these distasteful traits that you often observe in people? Well, the explanation lies in the fact that people are complex beings with many layers to their personality. And those layers present themselves like a whole multitude of masks overlaying that true soul core. The very derivation of the word personality is rooted in the Latin and Greek words for mask. If you want to discover what your soul is, you must look beneath the surface and delve into the inner journey. And the best way to do that is through meditation. In the East, personality aspects are called koshas, which means stealth or covering. And some in the West will call this personas, or refer to it simply as masks. These characteristics are like filters on a light that project shadows and colors and patterns and textures. In the case of the soul, they not only overlay your soul, but they disguise your true nature. I've sometimes referred to this as like layers in a garbage can. So you have pile upon pile upon pile of these distortions and illusions and the pain and suffering and all of the memories of what you've gone through in the past. And they trick you. And for the most part, your soul is not what you think. It's not what you imagine it is, because we tend to take what our experiences are and project that onto what we think the soul is. But the soul's very nature lies beyond your normal frames of reference, and certainly beyond your physical senses. So what you think of as your personality is in reality an assemblage of many sub-personalities, each with particular characteristics, which can be mistaken for who you think you are. I also think of them as identities, because I find that most people identify with them so strongly, they believe they are the identity. And it's easy to think that because you feel or think a certain way, and you think this is who and what you are, when in fact, the analytical mind has just taken what you feel emotionally as evidence for what is real. And it creates an image of what it thinks you are, and then it proceeds to act as if it's all real, when it was all manufactured by the mind, forming false conclusions. So you generally think of yourself or define yourself by your external characteristics, when in reality, the soul doesn't operate from the same mechanisms that comprise your surface identities. It's like a completely different operating system. The deeper you go, passing through the many layers of personality characteristics, the closer you will get to your authentic self, your true self, your higher self, or your soul. When the connection is made with the soul, you'll find peaceful feelings arise and begin to reveal aspects of the soul that are above the everyday stresses and emotions and judgments that occupy most people most of the time. It operates completely differently from your emotions and from your analytical mind. In order to access this deep aspect of who you are, it requires quieting that busy analytical mind, which is always processing. It's always trying to figure things out. It's always trying to fix things. It's always trying to make things better. It's always looking for something it doesn't have. It always wants more. So we need to bypass that if we want to discover the soul and go a little bit deeper and eventually very deep into the recesses of consciousness. Now, it's not difficult. This is not really a difficult task. In fact, it's natural. And most people have already experienced this in certain degrees. So, for instance, when you're relaxed and peaceful and feeling safe and reflective, you have touched on what I'm describing. When you feel oneness, openness, and joy of holding a baby in your arms, or you become lost in beautiful music, or you're inspired by an encompassing sense of beauty in nature, you are touching on what I'm referring to as the soul. These are doorways to the soul. And accessing the soul is through a process and a practice which can be refined. And in the process, the masks of these subpersonalities dissolve, and the deeper soul traits will rise to the surface. They'll emerge more and more. The outermost layers covering your soul and who you really are consists of characteristics related to your physical body. So it's natural to form much of your self-image based on your physical characteristics. So you look in the mirror and you've been looking at it all your life and you form certain conclusions about it. However, you're much more than the shape and size of what you see in the mirror. And you are more than your desires, your needs, your wants and drives. In addition, your psychological self, your emotions, your judgments, they all contribute a great deal to who you think you are or what you think you are. But these are actually all outer characteristics, and they often seem to be automatic and beyond your control. For instance, you may feel driven for safety, security, sleep, food, sex, money, fulfilling all other kinds of physical needs. But while they may seem to define you, these instinctual needs, if you want to call them that, and desires derive from your biology, from your biochemistry, from your memories and beliefs. And they can be confusing on your journey to uncover your soul. At a deeper level, you find the nature of the true self or soul revealed, where there is no struggle, no stress, no conflict. Instead, you find peace, happiness, harmony, joyfulness, a sense of fulfillment and completion, embodied in a radiant, glowing essence of love and light. And when this core is reached, it is known and felt tangibly, just as tangibly as any other experience. It's not a psychologically induced state. It's a direct realization and experience that's transformational. The more you practice attuning to your inner reality and truth, the more it emerges in your everyday life. So it's really just a matter of practice. And as it emerges, it changes your perceptions, your conclusions, and the way you experience other people and situations. It enriches relationships. It has a harmonizing effect on all aspects of your life. Now, if this sounds overwhelming, it isn't, because the soul itself is guiding the process of your evolution, and its resources extend beyond all that you've learned and forgot in school or church or synagogue or temple. The soul is your greatest resource. It brings oneness, wholeness, completeness, and it has access to anything that you are ready to accept and allow yourself to receive. Once you understand that your life at this moment is part of a much larger continuum than just a few decades, you open yourself to a much higher calling, a much more noble journey of cooperatively joining with your soul in its evolution. And you can know all of this and more by saying yes and opening to feeling with your heart and awakening your mind to what consciousness is, what the soul's consciousness is, what the soul is that is wanting to express through you every moment. And anyone can learn to connect with their soul, but you do need to put some time into it and practice it. And then you eventually reach a place where it becomes automatic. But until you get to that place, you practice. And the best way to do that is through meditation. And you can do this in your own meditations. But also be aware that it gets easier. In the beginning, you might not feel like you're making a lot of progress or connecting very well. When I was beginning to feel a need to discover my soul, I didn't feel anything for weeks, not a thing, but I kept at it. And it became the primary focus of between 1 and 2 hours of meditating every day, wanting, requesting, asking to sense, feel, connect with the soul, and to merge more deeply with it. And eventually it began to reveal itself to me in many beautiful ways. So don't be discouraged if you're not successful in the beginning. You start by getting in a good quiet state of meditation where you can feel peaceful and the mind becomes more quiet. Your soul is actually larger than your physical body. So your body is in your soul rather than the other way around. And therefore, you can connect with your soul anywhere in your body. But the most important place to focus is your heart. So yeah, you can focus in your head, but that's also where the analytical mind operates, and it can get in the way of your having a good, clear connection with your soul. On the other hand, meditating with your hand over your heart, putting your hands over your heart or one hand over your heart, helps you bypass your analytical mind. The analytical mind is always questioning and it's critical and it's always throwing in a bunch of confusing ideas. But when you operate through the heart center, you establish a more clear, pure soul connection. Now, I have an entire section on my website dedicated to the soul and all of its resources. I put them in there to help you find your soul's journey. I have a book on the subject called The Soul Solution that has a lot of self-guided meditations and explanations. And I have a free gift for you right now. You can download audio meditations from the book. There are several meditations that I recorded that you can access through my website. So if you want to download them, they're free. You need to go to my website, jonathanparker.org, and click on the free resource tab, and then click on the soul category. Once that page comes up, you'll want to scroll down about 2/3 of the way, and you'll find a picture of the Soul Solution book. And there's a little button there that says Learn More. Click on that, and then you'll be led to another page. And on that page, it says Access Meditations, and you can click on that, and you have to enter a code. The code is Soul-Filled Heart, one word. The S, the F, and the H are capitalized. Soul-Filled Heart. And you're asked to enter your name and email address. Basically, the emails I send out, usually once a week, are just to announce my YouTube videos. I will not flood you with emails. I don't give the email addresses to anybody else, so you don't need to worry about that. So there's several meditations there that you can download or you can listen online, and they're my free gift for you. We'll see you next time.